Question about mixing film scores. Do you generally try to mix your scores in a mindset of how it will fit with dialogue? Absolutely. Film scoring is different than regular music because when people talk, it's where in a song they would be singing. It's in a range, a frequency range. So film scoring in general as a craft, an art, it's a little bit different than just regular music. It's about extremes, and you want to be in the low end and you want to be in the high end, and when there's no dialogue, you're free to do something in the middle, but in general you want to stay out of that middle area whenever there's dialogue. And in an action scene, for instance, you want to write long notes so you get heard. If you write punctuated notes in an action scene that's also got punctuated effects going on, nobody's going to know what's music and what's action sounds. It's much better to write long notes. Okay, you say, I'm used to mixing regular music and library music, so films are obviously different. Right. There's definitely a difference, and that's the kind of cinematic sound is kind of about that. It's about, rumblings and high-pitched tension holds and sort of building a language of music all around that. But then, of course, when there's no dialogue and there's transitions in the film or action sequences or dialogue's not important, for instance, let's say two people are talking to each other, but what they're saying is not important because there's some ulterior motive going on, then, the music can be right in the middle of the dialogue and this dialogue's not important. But, 99% of the time, if there's dialogue, it's important. And that causes your music to be different. Do you deliver stems to a separate engineer or mix and master cues myself? Personally, okay, this is in one of the other Periscopes that are up on my YouTube. So go to the bio here of my Periscope and click on the YouTube link and go over to the film music education section on my YouTube channel and watch those previous Periscopes, and I totally address this there. I was a mixing engineer for about 10 years. I was also a mastering engineer for about 10 years as well. It's a bit of overlap there. I did one while doing the other at the same time. I had a studio and a mastering studio with multiple rooms and employees and everything. So I'm comfortable doing that. If you're not comfortable doing that, I recommend you hire that out. And in my other video, you'll see what I say is that hiring out doesn't necessarily mean you send that to a mixing engineer, which you could, but it could also mean they come while you're sleeping or something. Now it's their turn to mix your cues. So you just have them jump on your system and do all that work. So obviously you can see right there, there's 3 different ways to do that. And there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. See this screen is, go right on it. It's the Wacom, W-A-C-O-M, and the model is the Cintiq. I don't know how you pronounce it. C-I-N-T-I-Q. I'm going to keep. Are you feeling creative right now? Absolutely. And the thing is with, to be a film composer on a deadline, you really have to have your inspiration centers open and on tap. You have to get to that point in yourself as a composer where you can pull anything out at any time. And I talk about this a little bit in one of the other Periscopes. What I recommended people do is for 1 year, every day, try to sit down at the piano and with a pencil and paper, write something, anything. It can be even an analysis of something else that exists. So you're just sort of like thinking about composition deeply, and you should try to write something. And what I mentioned was, in the beginning, it would take me a couple hours to write something that I wasn't really happy with. But by the end, after 1 year, I was able to write lots of things in less than an hour that I was very happy with. And after that point, you're just totally open. And then you take that journal, that thing that you wrote in every day, and have it bound and just keep it somewhere as kind of a little reward for your accomplishment. It opens you up forever. And basically at any moment, I'm ready to explode with ideas. I'm ready to score anything at any moment. Okay, this person says, Adam Price says, I asked a question once regarding hit points on a different Facebook page which received many contradicting responses. So I'm interested to hear your response if possible. How do you treat hit points? In regards to definite hits, such as strikes in an action scene or the sudden appearance of a significant person, is it best to hit them on the nose or a frame or two later in order to let it sink in visually before reinforcing it musically? Does it depend on the genre of the film? Okay, so Adam, yeah, right after I grab some water here. If the punctuation is visceral, that means physical. If there's something physical you're trying to punctuate, visceral, physical, actually happening, then you do it exactly when it happens. It can be a frame or two late just out of giving you some wriggle room, but if it's something that's intellectual, it might need to bubble up more, and that could be even a second late. And it doesn't have to be a hit. It could be something that sort of seeps in and starts to come up. And then if it's an atmospheric thing, like let's say we're switching to another environment and we were over here, in this one office building, and now we switch over here and we're in a swamp. The swamp atmosphere can come in slowly. You have seconds at that point. So action, visceral, physical is the one where you have the most immediate hitting you must do. Intellectual, like ideas that are bubbling up, you have a little more time, 5 frames, 10 frames, a second or 2 seconds, 3 seconds can bubble up. And an environment change, that can seep in over the course of, depending on what the environment is. Like let's say you're going to a racetrack and you need music there, score, you're probably going to want to come in right away because that's exciting and jolting. But like I said, if you're going to a swamp, that might be something that we slowly start absorbing, you see. So it's not necessarily genre dependent, Adam, but it is dependent on the scene and what's going on and what needs to be punctuated. You might not even need to punctuate what you think you needed to punctuate. It might be an intellectual scene even though there's physical hits going on that you don't need to punctuate. Okay. Thank you, Adam, for that question. How many times do you watch a scene before you have something to start with? Well, Elmer Bernstein recommends, Elmer Bernstein was the composer for To Kill a Mockingbird and The Magnificent Seven, Ghostbusters. He recommended that you watch the movie, the entire movie, 20 times before you even begin to start working on the film or even thinking about what you're going to do for the film. 20 times. So I don't necessarily do that, but I certainly watch it a couple times. And even when you're spotting it, by that time you've watched it 3, 4, 5 times. So I do recommend you watch it a lot, many times, because you're going to catch reasons for things that you didn't catch that first time. It may take 5 or 10 times before you go, oh, that's why we have this guy in this one scene. I didn't even realize that. It's because he's the daughter's cousin. Later you sort of piece things together. Do I listen to the movie while sleeping? No. On bigger films, is it common for the composer to write for the trailer? Or are they done mainly through separate composers? No. Separate, composers. That's like a commercial composing gig. So like TV guys typically get good at that. Those short form kind of pack it in type writing. It's pretty rare that the composer actually writes the trailer music. As a matter of fact, Jerry Goldsmith wrote the music for the trailer to Judge Dredd, which he was assigned to score. But then when he saw the actual movie in completion, he decided against scoring it for his own personal reasons. And then, of course, Alan Silvestri did the score. So Jerry Goldsmith scored the trailer. Which is unusual that the composer scores a trailer. He was going to compose the movie. He bowed out. Alan Silvestri came on board. And now you have the trailer by Jerry Goldsmith and the film score by Alan Silvestri. Your thoughts about awards. Okay, personally, I think they're very important. I still cannot get my mind around, I might have a different moral set or whatever it is, and I just can't understand people who think that awards aren't important. But the fact is that Stravinsky is a better composer than a 4-year-old kid. Okay, so some music is better than other music, period. So I think that they are maybe too liberal or something. They're trying to say that everyone's equal and what you create's the same as what anyone else creates because it's all creating. But that's absolutely not true in my opinion. There is the best music, and then there are gradations below that. I'm not a type of person that believes in compromise. What I'll do with a director is discuss with them why we need to change the music, and until I feel that we've reached a decision that's the best decision, then we go with what we need to go with. I don't really believe in compromise, doing something halfway between what they want and what I want. I must understand why the director wants it the other way, and that other way must be better than the reasons why I was doing it my way, and I'm going to tell him about why I wanted to do it my way, and we're going to choose what is the best decision, and we're both going to agree on it, and we're going to go with that. You know, I think, to be good at something, you have to have standards. And when you have standards, they're like lines in the sand. This is better than this. So, yeah. I think awards are completely justified. It would be nice if they gave out maybe top 10, but that's what the nominations are. And then you give out the best one. Oops, I just closed that window instead of minimizing it. Over here I have handwritten score, which is the best way to compose music for films. From your thoughts to the page. That's the most open way you can write your music. Do I use Komplete? No, just Kontakt from Native Instruments to host other sample libraries. And I do talk about in one of the other Periscopes, VSL, what it's good for and what it's not good for, what are its limitations, do you need it? If I could claim any film score as my own, what would it be? So in other words, what film score do I like the most? Oh boy, that's a really good question there. I got a couple scores going on in my head. Which one? I'm going to go with Psycho by Bernard Herrmann. I think that's probably the masterwork of this art. I like scores for reasons that are different than most people like scores. I like things that are original. I don't like to see the same thing I've already seen because I've already seen it. And I don't like to hear the same thing I've already heard because I've already heard it. So I'm interested in people who are doing paradigm shifts, who are pushing the art and the craft beyond its original boundaries and doing new things with the art. My thoughts on film schools. If you want to learn film scoring, you've got 4 choices. You've got USC, that's the best. You've got UCLA. You've got Berklee School of Music back east. And NYU in New York City. Anything else is not going to be giving you really the right information. It's going to be second or third rate information. You'd be better off just taking private lessons with me. Where do I believe the sound of film music is going? Well, I'm really happy to see Stephen Price win for Gravity. I hope that in the next 5 years we'll continue to expand musical expression like that by using electronics and sound in general, because film scoring doesn't necessarily have to use music in order to communicate drama. The entire score to the movie The Birds was done by Bernard Herrmann, but using bird sounds. They cut together bird sounds according to how he dictated. Trent Reznor's score for The Social Network, for example. I didn't really notice Trent Reznor's score in The Social Network, and that can be a good thing, but it didn't really seem noteworthy to me. Just seemed like ambiances, but that's a great example of score not having to be orchestra and musicians.